Today, we are going to have an honest conversation on the intuitive eating movement. What might be missing, what I disagree with, what I do agree with, what's misunderstood, what's in misconceptions, and what does that mean for you moving forward if maybe you feel confused or unsure if intuitive eating is right for you, if you've tried it and you feel like if it didn't work, and really what to do moving forward and what I feel more in alignment with. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. All right. So today we're going to talk about a topic that has been on my mind for a very long time. And I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it on the podcast. And then today, as I sat down and I was like, okay, what does my audience need to hear? This is what came through for me. And before I get into my honest opinion on the intuitive eating movement, which right now you might be thinking like, what? I thought this was an intuitive eating podcast. Don't worry. You're about to understand really what I mean by that. But before I get into that, I want to give you just like some really quick updates. So if you're on my email list, then you know about this. And if you're not, then I want to let you know about something super exciting that I have been working on. So I told you about this, I think 2 weeks ago on the podcast, that I was working on a new free resource and that it was taking a lot of my brain energy and capacity because I wanted to put so much love and so much value into it. And it is finally complete. It is finally ready to go. And what that resource is a secret podcast. So if you have never heard of a secret podcast, let me tell you a little bit about what it is. So right now you're listening to this podcast, and I can tell because you're listening to it, you love listening to podcasts. That's the way that I love to learn as well. And I was thinking, what is a way that I can get really structured information to my community in a way that is very much like it follows a flow? Because the thing is, if you listen to this podcast, I have like over 150 episodes at this point, and it covers a large range of topics from body image to subconscious work to nervous system regulation to your relationship with food and coaching sessions. Like there is so much, but if you're someone who really likes structure and you like the step-by-step, then it might be difficult. And I even get messages like this all the time of like, where should I start? And so that's why I really got to thinking, I'm always taking into account, what do you need? Like what's going to make the most impact so that you can get real results and experience real progress in your relationship with food and your body. And so I started thinking, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a limited, like a mini series, and it's called the Food Freedom Experience. And it really is an experience because we are taking action inside of this secret podcast. It's not just like listening to a bunch of content and you're like, it makes sense and I know what I should be doing, but I'm not really doing anything with it. I wanted you to be able to have concrete action steps that you can implement into your life right away. So it's a 10 episode mini series and it is super bingeable. Most episodes are between 10 to maybe 13 minutes. And it really is like it follows a flow, so that whether you are brand new to doing this kind of work on yourself, or you have been doing it for a while, but you need more structure, or you need more clarity, or you need just like that refresher, this is going to be so, so powerful for you. And the reason why it's called a secret podcast is because you cannot find it on like a public platform. So if you search the Food Freedom Experience on Apple Podcasts, for example, it's not going to come up unless you have the secret link to subscribe. And what's also really cool about this secret podcast is that I was able to go more in depth on certain topics than I really can on these platforms where I talk about more broad range of topics. So in order to subscribe, I have a special link for you. You just have to go to sabrinamagno.com/secret podcast, all in one word. I'm also going to leave that link in the show notes because I know that sometimes we can't really remember it off the top of our head. So I'm going to leave that link in the show notes. And once you subscribe, you're going to get an email with your secret link so that you can add it to your platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. I think YouTube is also an option. So I was really excited to get to tell you about this because I worked really, really hard on it and I'm so proud of it. And I've already gotten so much positive feedback from people who are listening, and they're saying, I already feel better than I have in years. So that was the little announcement that I wanted to make before we get into this topic of my honest opinion on the intuitive eating movement. So in the name of this podcast, it is called the Intuitive Eating and Food Freedom Podcast. And over the past, I would say maybe year to year and a half, I've really been having a hard time deciding if I want to continue to use the words intuitive eating. And I've been going back and forth a lot. And I want to tell you why. So when I was struggling with disordered eating and my eating disorders, and I started to work on myself, like I stopped thinking that the answer was in more rules, more control, more willpower, and I understood that, oh, this is internal work that I need to be doing on myself, because eating and food is just a mechanism for something that I am needing deep inside, right? It's a symptom, it's a solution. And so if I don't do this work on myself, on my thoughts, on my emotions, on my nervous system, on my habits, then no amount of control or rules or dieting is going to solve this. So I started doing this work on myself, and I didn't really have a guide. I just threw spaghetti at the wall, and it was a lot of trial and error. And I do not recommend doing it that way, because you're going to experience a lot of headaches. You're going to experience a lot of frustration. And what can happen is that you might start to believe, I can't heal because I've been trying for so long and it's taking so long. And so maybe I'm doomed to struggle like this forever. So I, over time, very progressively, definitely not overnight, really noticed some changes in my relationship with food. I was eating a wider variety of food. I wasn't binge eating as much. I was healing my body image. And this happened over the span of a couple of years. And then I remember buying and reading the Intuitive Eating book. And I remember feeling like, oh my goodness, it's like someone described me to a T. I have never felt more seen. I have never felt more understood. I've never felt less alone, because in this book, they're telling you all of these stories of people who struggle with food and chronic dieting, and they put into words the process that I took myself through to heal without even realizing it. So when I read the book and I started really doing the research on it, it was like this light bulb went off in my mind. I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to teach people. This is how I want to help people. There's so much research that backs it up. And so that is kind of what I started doing with my clients a couple of years ago. And what I've noticed over the past couple of years is how much is misunderstood when it comes to intuitive eating. When you hear the word intuitive, if you just take that out of context, and if you don't really know what it means to be an intuitive eater, then I understand completely why you would be put off by that, why you might be scared by that. Because the word intuitive, what it really gives you the sense of is like, you don't have to think about it. It just comes to you. And whatever you feel like eating, you just eat it. And you don't really ask yourself questions. And I did an episode on this a couple of weeks ago on the difference between intuitive eating and impulsive eating. I got so many messages from you guys telling me, oh my goodness, it made so much sense. For the first time, it clicked why I was trying to do intuitive eating, or at least I thought I was doing intuitive eating, and all I was doing is impulsive eating. And so I think that the words itself, intuitive eating, is out of alignment with what it really is. And what I think is a better way to describe what I do and what I teach my clients is intentional eating. And the thing is that anyone who truly knows the in and outs of intuitive eating and is an intuitive eater, and especially like dietitians and coaches who fully understand the depth of intuitive eating, will tell you that yes, intuitive eating is intentional eating, because there is an intention to everything that I do with food. So I'm always asking myself, what does my body need right now? What's going to make my body feel good? What do I want to feel an hour from now? What sounds good? Like, what is the intention of what I'm eating right now? Is it to nourish my body? Is it just to enjoy food? Is it to connect? Like, there's always so much intention that is driving my decisions, but it now happens very unconsciously. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to spend like 5 minutes journaling before I make a food decision, because that is now my default, is to tune inwards and to make sure that the decisions that I'm making around food are intentional. They're mindful. And another thing about intuitive eating that I think people misunderstand is that intuitive and intuition, in and of itself, it makes you believe that you should just have it, right? Like, you're born with intuition, and you are. Like, we all have that gut feeling. We all have intuition. We all have that ability to eat intuitively. But if you have been ignoring your intuition, if you have been ignoring the signals from your body for years or your entire life, I really want you to hear me on this. It will take some work and some time to rebuild that muscle. It will take some tools and some specific strategies and exercises in order to start trusting yourself and even be able to hear your intuition. I started doing work on my own intuition a couple of years ago. One of my coaches is like this really impressive and sometimes like outer worldly psychic and mystic and energy healer. And if I told you some of the stories that she tells me, you wouldn't believe it unless you actually saw it for yourself. And so she gave us a course. She taught us. It was called Awaken Your Intuition. And I was so shocked when I started doing this work at how disconnected from my intuition I really was. Now, I was very connected to my intuition around food. Like at that point, it had been years. That wasn't a problem anymore. But I wanted to start using my intuition in my business more because, of course, if I'm following my intuition, if I'm following my gut, I don't know anyone who's ever been like, I listened to my gut and it was a huge mistake. And I realized that I didn't know how to differentiate my intuition from my anxiety. Think about yourself. Do you know the difference between that voice in your head that's saying, don't do this, or this isn't right for you, if that is just fear and anxiety, or if that is your gut feeling, if that is your intuition gently guiding you in the right direction? Well, I, turns out, really had a hard time differentiating that. And so I actually needed a course, and I am still constantly working on it, to give me specific tools, strategies, action steps in order to know, okay, what does my intuition sound like? And also in order to let that voice come through. Because so often we have things that block our intuition, not just intuition in the broad sense, but intuition when it comes to food. And so you might be feeling like, I honestly don't think that I can eat intuitively because there's nothing there. Like my body is not communicating with me. It feels like there's a wall in my mind. Like I don't think it's possible for me to eat intuitively. And so I think that a lot of people who have like this history of chronic dieting and who really care about structure, who really are so used to having rules, when your two options are to continue dieting and restriction or to do intuitive eating. Well, intuitive eating, in the way that it's perceived in the mainstream, that it's just whatever you want, whenever you want, and there's more of a focus on like just like the food freedom, the no rules, and less of a focus on the deep work that I actually do with my clients. I understand why you're going to be terrified to pursue intuitive eating, because literally what it's going to feel like is you're just jumping off a ledge without any kind of protection, any kind of support, and crossing your fingers that you don't fall into the sea of binge eating, losing control, gaining a bunch of weight, and being worse off. And for your nervous system, that is going to feel so effing scary, so effing unsafe and uncertain, that even if you're miserable in what you're doing right now, even if food is consuming your entire life, at least that feels more safe than intuitive eating. Now, another reason that I hesitate and struggle to align myself fully with intuitive eating is because the intuitive eating framework is made up of 10 principles, all of which I 100% agree with. So honoring your hunger, the satisfaction factor, making sure that you are approaching movement from a place of love, body image healing, learning to cope with your emotions without using food, gentle nutrition, like all of them I align with. And also in my program, when I'm working with my clients, I am not taking them through those 10 principles in that order, one by one, because once I started doing this work with my clients, I always developed my own frameworks and my own methods very intuitively based off of taking aspects from all of the work that I do. Because you don't see me behind the scenes, but I am such a freaking nerd for personal growth and development. So I have done the work, the research, read the books, invested in coaches from neuroscience, energetic work, subconscious reprogramming, nervous system regulation. And so I've taken so much from each of those fields and I include it in the methods that I teach my clients because I see everything as being very holistic. And a lot of the work that I do actually isn't about the food. It's about what's going on underneath the surface because the food is serving a purpose for you. And unless you uncover the root cause of why either you keep overeating, you keep binge eating, you keep emotional eating, or why body image feels like something that has this like grip on you, or you can't stop restricting or dieting until you uncover the why. It doesn't matter how much I talk about food with you, it's just going to be surface level. And so when I put together the Fuel method and I created the Food Freedom Academy program, I took elements from all of the work that I had done on myself and with my clients from all those different areas. And so I really started to notice that there's more that needs to be addressed and that needs to be done, especially in the realm of nervous system regulation and creating a sense of safety around the changes that you're making with food and with your body image that wasn't necessarily fully explored inside the intuitive eating frameworks. And so that's another piece of it that makes me hesitant is that I go so much deeper. But the end result is the same. The end result is that you become an intuitive eater, that you become an intentional eater, that you become a mindful eater, that you become an eater that feels at ease and at peace around food. And what I really see it as is that you will become an intuitive eater. And that is a term that I can stand behind 100%, is being an intuitive eater. Being an intuitive eater where you know how to listen to your body and you also know how to incorporate rational thought, where you are like, for example, and I really do recommend that you listen to the episode on the difference between impulsive eating and intuitive eating. I think it's called the number one misconception about intuitive eating. But I'll give you an example. Let's say someone offers me a donut for breakfast. Someone who doesn't fully understand intuitive eating might think, well, intuitive eating means no food rules. And they might even feel the pressure to say yes because they're scared that if they say no, then they are restricting. But as an intuitive eater, my thought process will be, I think that if I eat a donut this morning, that's not really going to start my day off great. And I'm going to get a massive sugar crash in an hour or so. I'm going to be hungry again. And so, although I do love donuts and I could say yes, I'm going to choose to say no, because being an intentional eater means that you are making decisions for yourself with a sense of personal agency. Like, I'm allowed to say yes, just like I'm allowed to say no. You are taking into account what's going to feel good for your body. And most important of all, which I really think that gets left out of the intuitive eating conversation, is how much I value healthy habits. I think what tends to happen when people start pursuing intuitive eating, especially A, on their own, or B, with someone who aligns more with like this surface level type of intuitive eating, I guess is the best way to put it, is that you might start by like, okay, let me just bring all these foods back in and no food rules and I can eat whatever I want. But then you're going to get to a certain point where you're like, this doesn't really feel good. And I love that I have this freedom, but I don't love that I don't feel good in my body and that I'm overeating and that like I'm eating a lot of sugar and maybe I'm gaining weight. And is this what intuitive eating is? Because another thing about intuitive eating that gets misunderstood is like, at least for myself, I think that you have full body autonomy. And I want you to feel confident and I want you to feel comfortable in your skin. And I don't see like weight gain just for the point of weight gain as being necessary. Will there be some people who actually do need to gain weight in order to get to the set point weight where they feel the healthiest? Yes. And that actually was my case. Like, I was at my lowest weight when I started really healing and I needed to gain weight in order to get to my set point weight. But let's say that you do just like open the floodgates and like, this is intuitive eating. I think a lot of people then get stuck because it's like, well, now what? And this is, I think, where a lot of people get drawn to maybe my approach in my program, because one of my 4 pillars is all about healthy, sustainable habits and behavior change. I know that habits are the foundation of a life that feels good physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. Habits around nutrition, habits around movement, habits around self-care. And so I think a lot of people, when they get to that point where they're like, now what? They're scared to start trying to eat healthier or trying to move their body because they haven't done the foundational work and they don't have the right approach or mindset to approach healthy habits and approach behavior change from a place of flexibility and compassion and kindness and balance. Like, when I'm working with my clients, it is a very progressive process. And I make sure that the habits that they are putting in place around nutrition, around movement, and around self-care are things that A, make sense for them, B, is going to be sustainable, and C, they can build on. So it's not this like 0 to 100 and then you just get sucked back into the restriction mindset. It's okay, how can you approach creating a holistically balanced life that feels good for you and that you're doing with the intention of self-love and self-care? And this goes back to why I feel more aligned with the words intentional eating or intentional living than I do with the words intuitive eating. And one more thing about this too. I know that I'm running a little bit long, but I want to make sure that all of this is really clear and makes sense for you. And I just want to highlight that I'm not saying that I disagree with intuitive eating. If you know what the process is and you understand the complexities and the nuance, absolutely, I stand behind it. But nuance is not our society's forte. Let's just say that. Nuance, living in the gray, and diving deeper than what is possible to do in like a 5-second reel on Instagram is not always present. And so I'll see things like you can't want to lose weight if you pursue intuitive eating, which I personally completely disagree because that's just unrealistic. We live in a world that is very fat phobic, and now more than ever with the rise of GLP-1s and Ozempic and all of that stuff, which that could be another episode in and of itself. But it's unrealistic to tell someone who has struggled with their body image their entire life to then go and say, you need to just erase that from your mind and pursue intuitive eating. That's going to feel super, super unsafe for your nervous system, because your nervous system and that part of you that has been holding on to the beliefs that you need to lose weight in order to be loved and accepted and part of the social group, it's going to really resist this notion that now you're just going to let all of those guardrails down. And so that's going to be a huge resistant point. And really, I can't stress this enough. My point for you is to be at your healthiest weight and to have the healthiest and most balanced habits that you can maintain when you're like 50 and 60 and 70 and 80 years old. And I do stand by the belief that if weight loss is your main goal, if it's your objective, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because then you are going to make decisions from a place of fear and anxiety instead of from a place of love and long-term thinking. And so that's why I talk more about your nervous system and your behaviors. And that's what I focus on, because the weight is going to be a byproduct. Like, that's really the way that you need to be looking at it, is that when I can focus on creating a sense of safety in my body and regulating my nervous system and putting in place these health promoting behaviors, that right there is what is going to allow you to get to that healthy weight that is maintainable for you. There's also a lot of misconceptions. Well, I don't know that I would say that this is a misconception, but that intuitive eating doesn't address your nervous system and regulating your nervous system. And I will say that if you're just reading the book, or if you're just going through the intuitive eating workbook, that is true. They don't really touch on your nervous system and how much your nervous system impacts you and controls your behaviors on a daily basis. And that's why a full pillar in my fuel method is emotional regulation, which is nervous system regulation, because it is such an important piece. And this is what's going to differentiate I know what I should be doing versus I'm actually doing what I know that I should be doing. Because if you don't address your nervous system and if you don't create a sense of safety around the actions that you're taking towards intuitive eating, you just won't do it, or you're going to have 1 feet in and 1 feet back in your past patterns that kept you safe. And so I think that, again, that's actually one of the biggest pieces that I think is missing from the intuitive eating conversation is the role of your nervous system. There's also this misconception that intuitive eating means that you have no structure, which I couldn't disagree with more. I'm a big structure girl. If you know me, I'm so psychotic. I'm so neurotic. Like, I really love my schedules. I love my to-do list. I love my structure. I love planning and making sure that I'm set up, and I'm doing it all with the intention of making my life easier. And so I really incorporate structure into my program because you are someone who has come from a world of rules, of someone telling you what to do. And for me to be like, okay, well, now it's like, just do what you want and just eat what you want and just kind of go with the flow. That's ridiculous. Like, that's not going to work. And you're just going to feel really lost. And you need guidance. Like, you really need to be told, okay, start with this, work on this, then this is going to happen. And there is structure involved. And lastly, there is this idea that intuitive eating only works if you're thin. Live unrestricted, fam. This one is tough because people are once again associating an approach to eating with your body weight or size. And the way that I really like to look at it, and I think that this is really going to help you, is if you're new here, then we'll go through this so that you're up to date. If you're not new here, then you already know kind of what are the 4 elements that I teach inside of the Food Freedom Academy, the 4 pillars that make up the fuel method, which is fundamental body connection, number 1. Number 2 is the unrestricted mind. Number 3 is emotional regulation. And number 4 is lifestyle consistency. So when you really think about all of those different elements by themselves, and we'll start with the first one, which is fundamental body connection. And we think of that statement that intuitive eating only works if you're thin. Well, we have to look at what it actually means. Like, what are you actually going to be doing and developing and cultivating on your way to becoming an intuitive eater? And that's, again, why I feel like my approach is different from the intuitive eating approach, because we do approach things from a more holistic point of view, and we look at subconscious reprogramming, and we look at neuroscience, and we look at the energetic side of it. So there is, and we do parts work, right? Like, there is more to it. But let's start with just fundamental body connection. Is it true that connecting to your body and listening to your body only works if you are thin? The answer is no, right? Anyone with the right tools and resources is able to receive those signals from your body. Some might have a harder time because your mind may interfere with that. So you might get a signal from your body, but then your mind goes, I don't know if it's time to eat, or is it not time to eat, or is it if I'm eating too much? And that's why the second pillar is the unrestricted mind. But everyone has the capacity to listen to, be connected to, and honor their bodies. I think that we can all agree on that. Will some people, again, need a little bit more support when it comes to that? Yes. But if you have a good support system, if you have a good coach, absolutely possible. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, because I've worked with women, all ages, all backgrounds, all histories, and I know that it's possible. Now, the second piece is the unrestricted mind. And this is where we're working on your thoughts, your beliefs, the mental patterns that are causing you to repeat the same patterns with food. Is it possible to rewire your mind, whether you are in a thin body or whether you are in a bigger body? Yes, absolutely. Again, with the right tools and resources, because there could be some things that are interfering with your ability to really rewire your mind, like your nervous system not feeling safe to let go of old beliefs, old patterns that it thought you needed to do in order to be protected. But anyone is capable of changing their thoughts and their beliefs. We know that from neuroplasticity. Then that leads us into the third pillar, which is emotional regulation. And this is where you learn to work with your nervous system. This is where you learn to move through emotions. You learn to understand when you feel safe or unsafe. You learn to make the link between your patterns around food and around your body image and your nervous system responses. So when you're in fight or flight, when you're in freeze, or when you are in fawn, which is people pleasing. So anyone, whether you're in a larger body or you are in a thin body, is capable of learning how to do this. Now, of course, trauma plays a part in this. And so this is something that needs to be considered, that I will say is not fully considered or talked about in the intuitive eating framework, at least not in the book when someone is just looking at it surface level. But this is possible to do for anyone, whether you're in a smaller body or in a thinner body. And then lastly, lifestyle consistency. And that is knowing what it really takes to change your habits and your behaviors in a sustainable way so that you can maintain it. What it really takes to build balance and healthy habits around food, around movement, and around self-care. This is possible to do, whether you're in a thin body or whether you're in a bigger body. But you're probably starting to see why all of these pillars need to work together in order for this transformation to become possible. This is why I hesitate to use the word consistently in my content, but it's also why I have it in the name of this podcast, because the people who are looking for intuitive eating need to be here to understand the nuance of what it really means, what it really looks like to live as an intuitive eater, and might also need to expand their definition and their understanding of intuitive eating. And I think the biggest takeaway that I want you to get from this episode and kind of the way to move forward is to look at it more as intentional eating. Intention drives everything. Am I making this decision from a place of pressure, people pleasing, fear, anxiety, or am I making this decision from a place of love, genuine desire, peace, calm? That's really what is the most important. And I will likely continue to use the term intuitive eating in my podcast or in my content from time to time, because I do want the people who are searching for an approach to food that is more kind and balanced and genuine and intuitive to find me and to find this content, because once they get to learn more about it, they will have a broader definition and understanding of what it really looks like to get to that point where food is a non-issue. So I hope that this episode was really valuable and gave you an idea of how to approach this whole world with more clarity, because I know, my friends, that it's a confusing world out there, and everyone has differing opinions, and everyone is arguing with everyone, and everyone has their own mindset and perspective on things. And so my goal is always to bring you nuance. My goal is really to cut through the noise and the bullshit and give you some actionable and clear strategies moving forward. So if you have any questions about this episode, send me a DM on Instagram at Sabrina Magnon Health. I'm going to send you a voice memo. I'm going to be more than happy to clarify any questions that you might have from today. And if you want to hop into my secret podcast, The Food Freedom Experience, you can go to sabrinamagnon.com/secret podcast, all in one word, and have a wonderful rest of your day. My loves, I love you and appreciate you so, so much. And I will see you on the next episode. Hey, real quick before you go, if you're loving this podcast and you're thinking, Sabrina, I want more. I want to go deeper. I want a step-by-step process for healing my relationship with food. I've got a free workshop that literally walks you through it. It's a full breakdown of the exact method that I use to help my clients stop binging, heal emotional eating, and finally feel at peace with food in their bodies. It's totally free. So if you're ready to stop feeling obsessed and out of control with food, head to sabrinamagnon.com/training or find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnon Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.